Hello, everybody, and welcome to Football Italia's pre-match stream of Croatia versus Italy, the third and last match in Group B. I'm Wayne Girard, and I am here with Lorenzo Bettoni, who is out pitch side. Lorenzo, how are you feeling heading into this one?
Well, very excited as in the previous two matches, but this one has a special flavor, of course, because there's a lot at stake for Italy. There's a lot at stake for Croatia, who must win this game. Italy have two results available: win or a draw, qualify them for the round of 16 against Switzerland. They know their opponents already, but we know these two teams head into this game with with a very different attitude. I mean, Italy lost quite badly against Spain, although the scoreline was acceptable, just 1-0, but the performance was pretty much criticized by everyone. Croatia had a sort of bitter end to the game against Albania as well, because they conceded a super late equalizer, but they have just one result available. They're still alive, and we know that when Croatia have a chance to be alive and to progress, they always go out and leave everything on the pitch. So we must do exactly the same tonight and try to get at least a draw to get out of the group phase.
Yes, they're an experienced side, Croatia, since they were formed in the early 90s. They are unbeaten against Italy in those 8 matches, 3 wins, 5 draws. Their last 3 encounters have all ended 1-1. So this is not as easy on paper. It is important to remember that this Croatia side has accomplished a lot. They are experienced. We see now, Lorenzo, that they've lost a little bit of steam. In our first live stream for Football Italia, you mentioned that Croatia was part of this golden generation, and now they've gotten a little bit older. They're a little less powerful than they once were. But still, I don't think we should take them lightly. And they still have one of the best midfielders of all time with Luka Modric pulling the strings. Phenomenal player. So as we look at some of the scenarios, though, Spain have already qualified. They're group winners. But now, Lorenzo was getting at, Italy will qualify for the knockout round with a win or a draw today. Then the adversary could be Switzerland in the round of 16. But if Italy loses and Albania beats Spain, Italy are eliminated. It is important to remember, though, that the 4th best third-place teams will qualify for the round of 16 or the knockout rounds, called both ways. However, I do want to introduce us to somebody very special. He is a senior writer at Football Italia. Richard Hall is here, and he's one of my good friends. I'm very excited for him to come on now. I'm going to add him in. Richard, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm really good. And I just want to ask first question is, Lorenzo, how's the atmosphere over in Germany? Because obviously this game is massively important, as Wayne has very clearly said. And what's the expectation around the Italian fans? Is it building now? Is there a nervousness?
Yeah, just 1 second. I'm going to freeze as usual because I think we got the message with the official lineups. So give me 1 second. We confirm the teams, and then I'll get back to you.
I'm just going to put these through. Richard, what's going on? Are you excited for this one?
Nervous, to be honest. Yeah, a little bit nervous in the sense of it's really important, obviously, as we know. The game against Spain, Wayne, you'll know absolutely that. I don't think we would have, knowing you as I do, I don't think any of us would have gone in with a huge amount of confidence, but we're quite realistic in our expectations. And I was quite proud of Italy in a very strange way in the game against Spain, because we were
guys. Sorry, there are kind of big changes for the starting lineup for Italy, because we expected to have Di Marco on the bench, but Di Marco starts with Darmian, and then we have on the right wing Giacomo Raspadori. Attacking midfielder Lorenzo Pellegrini, and central midfield Jorginho and Barella. So Italy will line up with 4-2-3-1, Donnarumma, Di Lorenzo, Bastoni, Calafiori, and Damian. Jorginho and Barella in central midfield, Raspadori rather than Cambiaso, as it was initially thought, on the right wing. The attacking midfielder is Lorenzo Pellegrini rather than Barella, who's in central midfield. And the left winger on paper is Federico Di Marco, with Matteo Retegui in attack, which is confirmed. So the changes in this lineup compared to what we had thought is Di Marco starts on the left instead of Chiesa. Raspadori starts instead of Andrea Cambiaso. And Brian Cristante goes on the bench with Jorginho and Barella in central midfield. Lorenzo Pellegrini starts as an attacking midfielder. So a few big changes for Italy. Both Darmian and Di Marco start. So yeah, as Franks is saying in here, it can be a 3-5-2 as well, with Retegui and Raspadori in attack, Di Marco on the left wing, Pellegrini, Barella, and Jorginho in central midfield, and the right wing is help me again, is Giovanni Di Lorenzo, of course.
Di Lorenzo.
So yeah, it's probably a 3-5-2. UEFA sent the official lineup sheet with a 4-2-3-1. It was all live, so we said as we read it. But yeah, 3-5-2 makes much more sense for this sort of lineup.
Can I ask a question, if that's okay? Do you think that that's based with, especially Raspadori and Retegui, do you think that's trying to ignore the midfield of Croatia a little bit and trying to look on the counter-attack? Why would Lorenzo, what do you think about that lineup? How do you see it from what Spalletti's done here? What do you think he's trying to do?
You know, after the Spain game, he said, I mean, we all saw that the game was pretty poor, the performance was pretty poor against Spain. And he said that in the last 20 minutes, which is true, Italy created a little bit of trouble more for Spain. And he said it was probably because Retegui and Raspadori were fresher, so they could press a little bit higher. They could recover the ball a little bit higher on the pitch. And so this is why I think he chose Raspadori and Retegui, because they can press a little bit more. And because, let's be honest, guys, so far, just one centre forward hasn't worked out for Italy. Just Scamacca alone. I don't think he's to be blamed for the loss against Spain. I don't think he's to be blamed for not scoring goals against Albania, because in the end, he had just one chance, but it wasn't even that big. So I don't think there's a problem with Scamacca. I just think he wants to reshape the team a little bit and make sure he has a little bit more attacking threat. He has a little bit more, fresh legs, fresh hair, fresh mentality, fresh everything to go out, try to press Albania and try to, have a kind of different setup to surprise them.
I think it's a strange situation here that he put Darmian as a center back, as one of the three. Rich, is this typical of where Darmian has played for Inter? I would think, for me, I was thinking more like Mancini or Buongiorno, but here we see Darmian, a more attacking option as one of the three center backs. Rich, what's your take?
He's done it before for Inter, and he's capable. You look at his game, and he's very controlled on the ball, and I think that's what we should really appreciate about that. He's not. I think Darmian's almost guilty of his own success sometimes, in the fact that we see him as someone who's very good at set pieces, very very attacking, but he's also very good centre half, and so yeah, I understand what he's doing there as well. I think as well, when you look at when Italy from the back have some very good ball players, and we're not. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but we're up against a Croatia side that, whilst people are saying they're too old, they're beyond their means, they're actually incredibly good in the midfield, and so Italy have to counter that. And I think that when you look at that, they have to counter it from the back. And so when you're looking at the likes of Di Marco, it gives you an incredible option there. It gives you an incredible option to build the attack. I don't know what you think.
And I think experience as well with Darmian at the back. I mean, he's a guy who's been playing Champions League final. He won the Serie A title with Inter. When Benjamin Pavard was injured in the first part of the season, he played exactly in that role. So I think Spalletti wants to recreate a little bit that Inter flavor with Bastoni, with Darmian. I'm curious to see where Bastoni will actually play, if on the left side of the three-man defense or if in the middle. because if he leaves Calafiori in the middle, it's a big statement. I mean, it means that he sees the personality to lead the defense. I would tend to think that maybe Bastoni can start in the middle of the defense with Calafiori on the left, but we'll see. We got I think a smart question from Sicilian, which is about Chiesa, and Wayne and I spoke about it in the post-match show with Spain. We asked, is Chiesa going to start against Croatia? He was expected to start, but he's not. He remains on the bench, and I think it confirms that Italy would line up with 3-5-2, because if it was a 4-2-3-1, then it would make sense to start Chiesa as the left winger or right winger. But with 3-5-2, we know already he played in that position, centre forward for Juventus, but we know it's not his favorite role, so it makes sense probably to leave him on the bench. I mean, it makes sense. It's always hard to leave Chiesa on the bench, because on paper he's the only player who can win one-to-one duels, dribble past opponents. He's one of Italy's starts, and he starts on the bench. So it's a big decision from Spalletti, but I think the original plan when the Euro started was to go with 3-5-2. He didn't do it in the first 2 games, and I think now he wants to try that and see how it goes. And I mean, don't forget, it's 2 results from 3, so maybe he wants to leave some options on the bench as well. And if Italy will need, then Chiesa will be included for sure in the second half.
Yeah, I think it's the formation I wanted to see. It's more or less the players I did. I wasn't sure. That's why I asked about Darmian. I was like, can he really play that role? But I'm confident after hearing from the both of you, or I feel better about it. Yes, and as we mentioned this, it's one thing to think about it, and then it's another thing to actually leave out the player who guided you to Euro 2020 glory. And for me, who's been one of the best players since then over the last 4 years. So it takes a lot of guts from Spalletti. I think he messed up here with Retegui. I think the option was still Scamacca. I find Retegui a bit slow. I think if you're going to play Raspadori, why not play a center forward he's more familiar with, like Scamacca? The two of them were so good together. So I also find that Scamacca works off the ball. Is it just a matter of getting fresh legs? Maybe based on what he sees in training, we can only guess as to what has actually been happening behind the scenes. And we criticize and we make these opinions, but I'm sure, look, Spalletti knows more about football in his pinky finger than I do in my whole body. So this is something he probably sees, through training, and then says, this is the best option.
When you have a tournament as well, I think what we have to understand is that, and we've seen this not just with Italy, but with other teams, where you come into a tournament with a game plan, and that's absolutely fine. And if you're a coach, you kind of would stick with your game plan for the second game. If it's just not quite working, how many times? I mean, we can go back. I mean, look at the fact of, let me use Italy in '90 as an example. That team that started was not the team that finished in the semi-finals or the third place playoff. No one understood that Scalacci would do what he would do. So, we've had so many teams that would do that, and teams evolve throughout the tournament. And so I think Spalletti's doing the right thing, because, I mean, Lorenzo, you'll probably be more factual than I am. How long has he been in the role now? 8 months? And, he's not really had the time to find this team out. So he's learning quickly, and he's learning game by game.
Yeah, exactly. It's from the beginning of September. So first games were during the September break. It's, I think, was 10 or 11 games prior to the Euros, and even in the pre-tournament games, he didn't confirm the same lineup in games against. I mean, the game against Bosnia and Herzegovina, he didn't confirm the previous lineup as against Turkey. Actually, probably the first time where he confirmed the same lineup as the previous game. I don't remember exactly, but I think this is exactly the case. It's in this Euro when he started, the 11 against Albania, and confirmed it after 5 days against Spain. I think it was the first time he's in charge that he actually confirmed the same 11 and the same starting lineup. So it says a lot about how much work Italy and Spalletti need to do, to find their identity, to find their playing style, to be a little bit more confident in terms of their tactics and in terms of the position they need to find on the pitch. based on what Spalletti said yesterday, I think it's quite surprising to see Brian Cristante out, because when he spoke about Jorginho, he said we're going to need. I mean, he praised Jorginho. He said, there was that thing where he said during the Spain game, Jorginho has to come and pick up the ball, otherwise it's pointless for him to play. And of course, it's something that a coach can say during the game. He has a camera pointed at him 90 minutes in each game, so they can spot everything he says. And I don't see a big thing in that. I mean, it's nice to see what he said, but I don't think it was something made to blame the player, and it's confirmed by the fact that Jorginho is in the starting 11. But when he spoke about Jorginho yesterday, he said we're going to need physicality, we're going to need somebody who wins aerial duels, we need to have somebody who can be a potential threat on aerial duels and set pieces. So I expected to see Cristante, maybe with Jorginho as well, maybe with Barella as well. I mean, for sure with Barella as well, but I would expect those three players on the pitch. Seeing Pellegrini rather than Cristante surprised me a little bit, but yet again, maybe, I mean, for sure it's part of the plan. He has a plan in case Italy go down at some point. He has a plan in case Italy at level or leading the game at some point, so we need a little bit more cover.
I like what Son of Rittermark says here in the comments. He said you have the option of Chiesa as an impact player. Croatia gets a little bit of tired. We've noted that they're an older squad. Italy quite young. I think the 6th youngest team in Euro 2024. So Chiesa comes on, lots of energy, hungry to prove himself, and maybe he can be the deciding player in this tie. So I think that even though he's not starting, like Rittermark says here, he can still show his value and perhaps be even more impactful off the bench than rather if he was a starter. Tony Falco, though, not as optimistic. Says Italy going home tonight. One. Let's go to the end of this comment here. There's no way in the world I see Albania beating Spain. Spain could play their 5th team, and they're still not going to lose against Albania. But you can make your own opinions about that.
I think when you look at Tony's comment there, I mean, look, Croatia. Whilst it could be easy to dismiss Croatia tonight, very easily, because we've seen the midfield look tired. It's the last hurrah, for want of a better word, of this midfield. But that doesn't take away the quality they have. And each game that you play is against an opponent who has a different strategy. So you have to look at it. And ironically, it could work for them against Italy, very, very much so, because if Croatia, for me, Italy don't need to play to Croatia's game tonight. That's my one thing about Chiesa, going back to the earlier comment, is I'm glad we have him to come on. Because I don't want this game to get bogged down in midfield. I actually think that, with the likes of Barella, the likes of the midfield that we have and the choices that Spalletti's made, it's difficult because they're not a Spalletti team yet. But I can see what he's doing. And I also, and maybe, I'm asking you both your opinion, I actually feel like we need to fall back into a default situation today to get the job done, rather than do what we're trying to do with Spalletti, because it's too soon. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a difficult game today. I don't think it's going to be the fact of just because we've seen Spain decimate Croatia doesn't mean that we're going to do the same thing. So it's going to be difficult. I think it'll be a very, very tactical game.
That's a
yeah.
Good
Don't
point.
forget. Sorry, Wayne.
Now I was going to say that's a good point, because just because Spain did it doesn't mean that Italy is somehow like on equal footing with Spain and they're going to replicate that. That's far from the truth. Go ahead, Lorenzo. Also, Lorenzo, there's a question here for you.
Yeah, I was saying exactly the Sicilian. Yeah, it's true. You can see there's the majority of Croatian fans. Sources have confirmed us that we have around 25,000 Croatia fans compared to Italy's 10,000, and the same was. I've been walking around Leipzig all day from 2 p.m. today, going in the city center, seeing some bars. They are the majority. They are the majority, and maybe you can see now there are some loud Italian fans, but You can see probably the majority of Croatian fans walking behind me. And even before I started this live stream, I was inside the stadium, and Italy players came out, for the walk around to test the pitch, to taste a little bit the atmosphere. And there were so many G's, there were so many boos for them, which suggests that, of course, there is the majority of Croatian fans. I mean, we've been here already. When we played Albania, we saw the report said there were 50,000 Albanians. I think it's underestimated. I think there were at least 65,000 Albanian fans compared to 10,000 maximum Italian fans. And the atmosphere at the beginning was absolutely mental. I mean, so loud. Then, of course, goal after 23 seconds didn't help Italy, but we had the guts. We had the reactions to go there, fight back with our technique, and dominate proceedings for around 70 minutes, 80 minutes probably. Tonight's going to be different. Tonight we're going to need a different approach because Croatia are much better than Albania technically. Spalletti said to some extent they're even better than us technically. For sure they have more experience. And so, guys, we need to be really careful with the approach. We need to be 100% sure that we have a strong start. I think we really need a strong start. We need to scare them out and say, look, we're Italy, we want to qualify. We need to get a goal as soon as possible because we can't let this game go for too long with a stalemate because otherwise it gets risky.
Lorenzo, can I ask you a question? Spalletti said today that we played like this before, but we need to absorb the Croatia attacks. Obviously, Wayne and myself, US and the UK, we have a very good understanding of Italy. But what happens from an Italian perspective? What happens if Italy don't get a result today? Because we've seen the Gazzetta dello Sport, Corriere dello Sport over the last couple of days. Corriere dello Sport said restart. Gazzetta dello Sport said Little Italy after the Spain game. What would be the reaction in Italy if there's not a result tonight, Lorenzo?
Well, of course, massive disappointment, first of all. There will be questions on Spalletti. There will be doubts on from a few fans or whether he stays or not. This morning, Gazzetta dello Sport had an article questioning whether Spalletti has picked the right players for his playing style. I think it's still very early. I mean, we didn't hire Spalletti to necessarily win this tournament, I think. Of course, going out in the group phase would be a massive disappointment and there would be question asked and it's surely not something that Italy want or the FIGC expect. But from the federation point of view, I think Gravina has full trust on Spalletti. They went out for dinner a few days after the loss against Spain with delegation chief Gigi Buffon. Gravina is always very close to the team, so he has full trust in Spalletti. If we think, we can't think that Spalletti is going to turn things around in 12 games, in 13 games. It's not possible. At the same time, if he goes out and if Italy go out in the group stage of the Euros, we all have something to learn. Now, probably, I don't know if you hear the boos, but this means probably Italy have started the warm-up.
A question here from Connor. Who's going to be that big factor in the game tonight? Who wants to take this first?
Let's go, guys. I need to think about it. Let's go.
Okay, I think it's going to be the difference between whether Luka Modric has the legs and Barella. I think you've got technical ability in both sides. I think the game's all in midfield. For me personally, I think Italy weirdly have looked to take on board the fact that Croatia are going to be very heavy in midfield, very tactical, and have a lot of possession. I think that lineup speaks to me like that. But I don't think Italy can sit back the way they did against Spain and accept it. But the game does, for me, need to be winning midfield. And I think that you look at the likes, and I use Barella, not just from a perspective, but because he's the one who can do it. And I think it's the energy and that pressing that needs to be done. And I actually think that might work actually with Retegui at the start with the energy. But yeah, I mean, look, what all the pundits throughout Europe have been saying is that this is the Croatian team that's on its last legs. Then Italy need to press hard, and I think it's energy that will win the game tonight, because I think that you can't dismiss Croatia because technically they're still exemplary. I mean, Wayne, what do you think? Am I wrong?
Donnarumma said something similar to this in the sense that we're looking for this individual to come and rise and be that guy, be the star player. But he said it's really just about our mentality. I think it's that, but I also believe that Raspadori can be the standout player of tonight. I think that he comes in very hungry. I think he's still a very fast player. He says, I'm getting older now. He's not old by any means. What is Raspadori, 24, 25 years old? I have to double check that.
24.
So that's some skill behind him. I think Raspadori will be the difference maker tonight. I think he's one of the last number 10s in Italy. We always say one of the last, but he's one of the very few real number 10s. I think with like Baldanzi. I'm trying to think of other. Isn't that crazy that I have to think twice about who's a number 10 out there? But he can play as one of the two, probably more withdrawn as the forwards. He's going to use that individual bit of skill. I think he's probably next to Jorginho, the smartest player on the pitch, excluding Modric, of course, who's a genius. So I think that's my player of tonight. That's my big factor to answer Connor's question. We have a couple other comments coming in here as well. Son of Rittermark says, so important when playing a back three to have ball-playing center backs, as we mentioned earlier, and a big strength for the Azzurri. Really enjoyed the way Calafiori has brought the ball into the midfield. So Calafiori becomes the villain last week. The aura is over, and he makes that mistake along with Di Lorenzo, who actually got a lot more criticism than Calafiori for that's a whole thing. I don't know if I want to go down that. But Calafiori tonight, if he can add that into the game against Croatia, we speak about that midfield battle, as Rich has mentioned, Lorenzo has discussed it. If he can provide that extra bit of movement and overload the midfield, I think that's one area where this match can really be won. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as Rich said before, we're going to have the midfield is going to be key. But I agree with both of you. I would have said Barella and I would have said Raspadori as well. Raspadori because he's one of those players without Chiesa. He's probably the only player who can dribble past opponents. There was something the other night I was watching the Belgium game, the last one they won 2-0 against Romania. And at some point, Carrasco went in and he just dribbled past two players like this very easily. And I was thinking, who's gonna do that with Italy? Who's a player who can do that so easily with Italy? Probably the only one is Chiesa, but Raspadori is another player who can squeeze past defenders, dribble past opponents, and it's somebody that probably tonight we will need this technique to win or get a result anyway against Croatia. And talking about Calafiori, yeah, if he brings the ball into central midfield, if he's able to keep possession, then maybe he can push Pellegrini a little bit higher. We can, aim to play the ball a little bit close to the box and be a little bit more unpredictable. So probably this is going to be one of the keys. Very curious to see Di Marco as well, because he didn't train with the team on Saturday. He didn't train with the team on Sunday. Everyone expected him not to be available at all, but yesterday Spalletti said he's fit. We just need to have some tests tomorrow morning, which is this morning. So, of course, the test went really well because Di Marco starting in left midfield as he does at Inter, same role. So I think those three players, Di Marco, Barella, Raspadori, are going to be key in this game for sure.
Yeah, Barella still the leading goal scorer for the Azzurri of active players, 10 goals. Or is it 11 now? I think it may have been 11 with his last goal. But he's going to have a big performance. I thought against Spain, he seemed to be what everyone else was, which was a little bit of a step behind. There is a heavy hand of Inter Milan in this Azzurri side. Can now having Darmian, if he's playing in the same side as Darmian, I imagine he will be. Maybe that also gives him a little bit more confidence, a little bit more rhythm to his game, and allows him to do what he does best. Richard, your take on that?
Yeah, we talked about it before. Look, I don't expect anyone to get excited about Darmian playing. Of course not. I understand that. No one's looking at that and thinking it's going to be vital, but it's not vital. I mean, we can look at Giovanni there saying, face some fundamental facts, the Italy player's not world class. And there won't be some players that are there. I would struggle now. World class is a very difficult word to say, so we'll put that one out. But look, I think what you have is a team, and it's a fundamental cog. And Wayne, you rightly sort of touched on there. It's what Darmian allows other players to do. And one thing you can always say about him is he is solid. He's very solid. And yeah, you know what? There is an interbase about this team. Bastoni with his great left foot and, the passing he can do from that back line, Di Marco, obviously, and Barella. So these players have run. I think when we go to Barella, who we can see on the screen now, his maturity is absolutely massive. I mean, even from when he was at Cagliari, I know his wife's a little bit older, and she's very much had an influence on him. And he's a very, very mature man for a very young head. For Italy, he's massive. So I think that consistency of where they are and that Inter backbone. And I'm not just talking about Inter here. If we look back on big squads, how many Italy squads are based on the back of the Milan squad from the 90s or, Juventus in the mid-90s? There's always been that base. And I think when you have a group of players who know how to play together under good coaches, in the Italian way, then that will help. And I think that Italy now, tonight, will need that tactical now. So I know this sounds really strange. And Lorenzo, Wayne, tell me if I'm wrong. I feel like where Spalletti's going, the football will be really good, but there hasn't been enough time. And what we need to do tonight is be typical Italy. Does that make sense? It's like we need to go back to...
No. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense in a way that, of course, Spalletti, he will never, he said it multiple times these days, he will never go out there and go to the team and say, all right, guys, today we sit back, we defend with a low block, and we just counter-attack. He said yesterday, modern football doesn't work this way anymore. So we don't want to do it. We're not going to do it. We want to keep the ball, but at the same time, for the first time, he said, sometimes we're going to need an ugly game. Sometimes we need an ugly and dirty performance because this is what the game requires. And if we look at the lineup, yesterday Bastoni said we want to show that we've learned from our mistakes. And of course, he was referring to the players, but I see something similar from the Spalletti perspective as well. When we had the post-match show with Wayne after the Spain game, we said the big problem was not Di Lorenzo. The main problem was not Di Marco. The main problem is that they didn't have help on the wings. There was not a player who was able to double up. There was not a player who was able to help that defensively. Tonight, we have Calafiori and Di Marco on the left. We have Di Lorenzo and Darmian on the right. So they want to show they've learned from mistakes. They want to show that it's not going to happen anymore, that we lose so many duels on the wings. It's not going to happen anymore that we concede so much space on the flanks. We need to see if it's the same game, if Croatia is going to do the same thing as Spain.
So
I don't know. I'm not sure. Honestly, I've watched a little bit of highlights. I've watched a little bit of clips from Croatia, not the full matches, so we can expect anything from them. But what I expect... there was a comment a few minutes ago that said the mentality will really make the difference. And it's really true, especially against Croatia, because don't forget, we're Italy, we're four-time world champion, twice European champions and defending leaders and defending champions. There was a funny Croatian fan here. Try to put down this one, but didn't manage it. So yeah, basically, we have more history than them, richer history, but they have more experience than us. So
Can I ask you a question then?
We gotta be really careful.
So, in your opinion, does Spalletti play his sort of football of how he wants the team to go, how he sees it in 10 games' time, a year's time? Or does he do what potentially we should have done against Spain and play ugly? What's the approach tonight? What do you both think?
Go on, Wade.
I think just that you can't underestimate Croatia. I'm not sure if this directly answers your question there, but I'm just looking at numbers here. Luka Sucic, 21 years old. My worry was that Croatia would be able to play the way Spain did with that speed on the wings. Maybe you want to repeat your question again as I'm going down this rabbit hole. 21 years old, he can be fast against these center back trident, not a pairing. They're not going to be able to play the same way that Spain does, though, because we look at Pasalic. Yes, he's powerful. However, this is not Yamal. This is not going to be Nico. They're very different. So I think that in a way, this could act almost as like a false confidence. Is if Italy changes, they modify the formation, they take out certain players, they put new ones in, and they do have a good match. Let's say Italy does go on to win 2-1, 3-0 today, whatever it is. It could act as a false confidence because we see Croatia, they were semifinalists in the last World Cup. We know what they've done over the past 10 years. But if Italy goes in and has a powerful performance, it could look like they're back on track and everything is good and Spalletti has figured it out. But I think that over the next 2-3 years, I don't think this team will be – they might win, but I don't think every problem is going to be solved. I think there are – I'm kind of mirror some of the comments that we've seen today, like Italy players are not world class. I think there is going to be an issue with handling very fast teams and teams who can win the midfield. So that's what I'm most concerned about today, is that if Italy wins, they get a false confidence, they go to the round of 16, maybe they get to the quarterfinals, and then they face another very good team, and it's over really before it started. But Richard, can you remind me what our initial question was?
No, no, it was more about the fact of just basically of how Italy approached the game, in the sense of, and what you said made sense, because with Italy, I always, I'm like with nostalgia and history. Okay, you both know that, so it's kind of my go-to. And when I look at it, and I think there's a question. Sorry, I don't remember whose name it was. Who came up and said Chiesa should start tonight. But I look back, and we can talk about teams in the past, and I go back to Italian 90s as a go-to because it's easy. You wouldn't expect to start, and then he did what he did. And Italy had great players up front then. I actually think Italy are a very, very good team. I think they've got a lot of potential, and there's a lot going on there. And my question, Wayne, was about whether Spalletti goes cautiously. And Lorenzo, I really want to know from you here, is whether he does go a bit more cautious and retreat into the Italian mentality, or goes into what he was quite comfortable doing with Napoli. I actually think he wants to do what he's done with Napoli, and I think he will do that tonight. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's the right approach. So, Lorenzo, do you think that he will go with what he wants to do with playing football? Because bear in mind, like you said before, he's had very little time with this team.
No, I think it's going to be very practical. I mean, I don't think if Italy get a draw and Croatia has 60% possession tonight, I don't think he's going to be disappointed. I think he's going to be very happy. So I think, again, tonight he wants to be very practical. He wants to be very cynical. He wants to be just to go out there, get the result, and then he knows he will have time to develop a team, look for the players. I think we're going a little too far away here, because what will happen in even the next month or even 2-3 years, we never know how football can develop. There are exciting players who are growing in Italy or growing abroad. There are young, exciting players that are coming up for Italy, so we never know what's going to happen. We didn't expect to win the Euros 3 years ago, and we may not expect to win the World Cup or the Euros again this year or in the following years. But football is about being very unexpected. So I wouldn't focus too much on what happens next. I would focus a lot on tonight. I would focus a lot on what Spalletti thinks, and I think tonight wants to be very practical, which doesn't mean, again, he's going to sit back. It means that he's going to be more cautious when it comes to one-to-one, when it comes to defending wisely, and not only focus on ourselves, but focus on the opposition as well, because they may be old, but they have experience, and probably they have more technique than us. So cautious, yes, but doesn't mean we're going to see, a Juventus-style performance under Allegri, for example. It's not going to be that way.
But, okay, to answer Giovanni's question on here, do Italy lack the ability to counter-attack without having Chiesa in the squad? Because he's messaged quite a few times here. He's put nothing wrong with the counter-attack. He mentions England there. But yeah, the counter-attack's obviously very useful. Giovanni's got a good point. Are we going to lack without having Chiesa in the squad tonight, guys?
I don't think so. No, I think that the shape is more important than anything, and what they lose without Chiesa is going to be helped by a player who is quite talented. So they're similar, but I don't think there's a drop off in quality from Chiesa to Raspadori. Raspadori is, I will tell you, he's not Baggio. He's not a prolific number 10.
Nobody's Baggio.
He's very good. He's not world class, but he's very good. And I think that will be enough if they play as a team. We have seen, go back to this idea of tournament football, we have seen teams carve out 7-8 wins or 7-8 performances, and that's enough to lift gold. So I think that's important to consider, is that this is not a 38-game season. We have to get through today, be practical. Lorenzo mentioned it's not going to be this low block thing. It's just about supporting one another, making sure players aren't isolated defensively, one-on-ones, make sure everyone has their back. And I think that will be enough for the win today. But to mention England here, it looks like England's been having their own problems. I don't know, Richard. I don't know if we want to go down that hole.
We don't want to talk about England because we've only got a certain amount of time and nobody cares because it's ultimately bloody boring. So my question back to you guys, talking about football that might be interesting, is more the fact that I'm interested thinking. I love that comment. Benching Chiesa, sorry, I'm just bringing this up while we're on. Benching Chiesa is like benching Baggio in '94. Oh, no, that's
it's probably a little bit too much.
I don't think we can go there. I like that though. That made me laugh. No, but what I'm trying to say is, okay, Lorenzo, one for you. Does Spalletti just try and win this tournament in the best way he can with the team he has and the squad he has, and then focus on the football that he wants to play afterwards?
I think he wanted to focus on this football as well now, but he had to change plan too many times. I mean, when he started, when he was appointed, it was supposed to be 4-3-3 formation, Napoli style with Berardi right winger, Chiesa left winger, and the center forward. Berardi got injured. Then Zaniolo got injured as well. It was supposed to be the replacement for Berardi. Then, with all these injuries on the wings, he said, all right, we go to the Inter style of things, three-man defense. We got Bastoni, Acerbi, and Damian, and Acerbi got injured. He had to change plans. To start with, he didn't have time, and then he had to change plans 3 times in 10 months. So, of course, there was not enough time, but there was also too many changes while he was preparing for a certain kind of football and for a certain playing style. So I think he's been facing a few issues, a few that of the decisions that he's made make sense when you think about the 3-5-2 formation. Otherwise, for example, he may have called Orsolini rather than Bellanova, for example. There are a lot of fullbacks in this team and not many wingers. It means that the basic idea is to line up with a sort of 3-man defense, which you never used so far in the Euros. Let's see,
Guys, we are
guys.
just under.
It's going to be a tight match for sure. What I hope personally is to not see confusion from the Italian players, because we've been changing a lot. Tonight we use a three-man defense for the first time in the tournament, so I hope we don't see confusion, and what we have is enough to get at least a draw and qualify for the round of 16.
100%.
Lorenzo and Richard, thank you guys very much. We are just under a half hour until the kickoff. We will be back with you for the post-match stream. Richard, Lorenzo, and I will be there. Hopefully, we'll be smiling and we'll be happy as Italy will have qualified for the knockout round of the Euro tournament, and we will see you then. Okay, guys, and don't forget to subscribe to our new account and leave a like for us. Thank you very much. Ciao.
Bye, guys. See you later.
Yeah.